Hey everyone, welcome to Alpha Bard Scientist. Many smokers say nicotine helps them relax. Some say it reduces stress, improves focus, or simply helps them get through the day. But here's an interesting question. If nicotine really helps us feel better, why don't people who have never used nicotine usually feel like they're missing anything? And why do many long-term smokers or vapors say they need nicotine just to feel normal? To answer these questions, we first need to understand what nicotine actually does inside the brain. First, what is nicotine? Nicotine is a naturally occurring chemical found primarily in tobacco plants. Its purpose isn't to help humans relax. In plants, nicotine acts as a natural insecticide, protecting the plant from insects. When a person smokes a cigarette or uses a vape, nicotine is rapidly absorbed into the bloodstream through the lungs. It reaches the brain in as little as 10 to 20 seconds, making it one of the fastest-acting addictive substances. Once inside the brain, nicotine binds to proteins called nicotinic acetylcholine receptors, often abbreviated as NACHRS. These receptors normally respond to a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, which helps regulate attention, learning, memory, and muscle movement. Because nicotine has a chemical structure similar to acetylcholine, it can also activate these receptors. However, nicotine doesn't replace acetylcholine. Instead, it overstimulates these receptors, changing the activity of neurons throughout the brain and triggering the release of several neurotransmitters. Why does nicotine feel good? When nicotine binds to nicotinic acetylcholine receptors, it activates neurons in several parts of the brain. One of the most important neurotransmitters released is dopamine. Dopamine is involved in reward, motivation, and learning. Rather than simply creating pleasure, it teaches the brain that a behavior is worth repeating. This is one of the main reasons nicotine has such a high potential for addiction. Nicotine also affects several other neurotransmitters. It increases norepinephrine, which makes you feel more alert, and acetylcholine, which can temporarily improve attention and memory. It also influences chemicals such as glutamate, serotonin, and endorphins, which contribute to learning, mood, and feelings of well-being. Together, these effects can make first-time users feel more focused, satisfied, or even relaxed. However, these effects gradually change as nicotine use becomes regular. Why do regular users feel they need nicotine? The human brain is remarkably adaptable. With repeated nicotine exposure, the brain begins adjusting to its presence. It changes the sensitivity and number of nicotinic acetylcholine receptors and gradually develops dependence. When nicotine levels begin to fall, these adaptations create withdrawal symptoms. A person may feel irritable, restless, anxious, have difficulty concentrating, or experience strong cravings. Using nicotine again quickly relieves these withdrawal symptoms. This is an important point. For many regular smokers and vapors, the feeling of relaxation after using nicotine is not necessarily because nicotine creates a calmer than normal state. Instead, nicotine is often relieving the discomfort caused by nicotine withdrawal, returning the brain closer to its normal baseline. In other words, nicotine is temporarily solving a problem that repeated nicotine use helped create. Do we actually need nicotine? Unlike nutrients such as vitamins, minerals, or essential fatty acids, nicotine is not required for normal human health. There is no biological requirement for nicotine to keep the brain functioning normally. People who have never used nicotine are fully capable of feeling calm, focused, and alert without it. For people who become dependent on nicotine, however, it can begin to feel necessary because the brain has adapted to its continuous presence. This is an important difference. Feeling like you need nicotine is not the same as your body actually requiring nicotine. It is a result of dependence, which develops over time through repeated exposure. So, do we really need nicotine? Science tells us that nicotine can produce rewarding effects, especially when someone first begins using it. But with repeated use, the brain adapts. For many regular users, nicotine's main effect becomes relieving withdrawal symptoms, rather than creating a better than normal state. This raises an interesting question. If nicotine is often helping people feel normal after dependence has developed, what would normal feel like without nicotine in the first place? Understanding how nicotine changes the brain helps explain why quitting can be difficult, but also why millions of former smokers and vapors eventually regain that normal feeling without relying on nicotine. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this evidence-based explanation, don't forget to subscribe to Alpha Bard Scientist for more videos exploring the science behind everyday life. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.